Hello, Covington County. Welcome back to Good News Covington County with Brother John. Uncle Bob's in the background somewhere, and we've got his cousin John Thomas with us from Andalusia Health. If you don't remember what that is, that used to be Andalusia Regional Medical Center. Their new name's Andalusia Health, and boy, howdy, y'all have got it going on out there now.
We do.
John Yanes has made a
lot
tremendous
of changes.
difference.
A lot of changes. For the good.
Now, John, I was real disappointed when you said it was physical therapy that you work with, because I originally heard that it was psychological therapy, and I thought there might be a chance.
Some people even call us physical terrorists instead of physical therapists. And physical therapists.
Well, I can remember.
So it depends on what they're having done, what they think of us.
Right, about 25 years ago, I was in a car accident, had my rib cage separated, up here, and then shoulder was dislocated, and they put me in there for, I can't even remember who the physical therapist was, but they had me doing push-ups on the wall and all this other kind of stuff to get everything rehabbed, and it worked. I didn't have to have surgery or anything. Wow. It worked. But anyway, the bottom line on it is that when I was going through it, I promised that guy that was working with me I was going to kill him when I got back to good health. Yeah, I was going to hunt him down just like a cur dog.
We hear that quite often.
But you know what? Got better and better and better. I had to say thanks to him. Got him a birthday cake afterwards. Wasn't even his birthday. They do good things there. My wife has recently been over one of your, what do you call them, patients, clients?
Right, patients.
Patients. And she has had some back problems and some hip problems, knee problems. Thought they were going to have to do surgery on her knee. She's still doing the exercises. They took my wife in over a course of about 6 or 8 weeks. They worked with her 2 or 3 times a week, and gave her exercises and therapy. And she's not like me. She took the doctor's advice, and she took John's people's advice. And she's walking better. Her back doesn't hurt as much as it used to. There's some issues there that that therapy's not going to help, but her hip and her knee.
That's great.
Straighten it out. The therapy did. It was better than going to see Oral Roberts.
That's great.
But yeah, so I just want to say, and I'm going to let him do a lot more of the talking, but I just want you to know that I'm familiar with his work. He's these people practiced on my family, but they didn't practice. They got it right. It was very, very obvious early on they weren't practicing. They were professionals. And they made a big difference in my life because it made a big difference in my wife's life. Right. And I appreciate that.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you for the kind words.
Well, I'm glad they're kind, but I mean they're also the truth.
We've got great staff. We've got a great staff. It's easy to manage great people.
Yeah, well, they do make you, but you got good people, and it takes a good judge to get good people, I think. Now tell me, you are in charge of the physical therapy department there at
Yes, sir.
At Andalusia Health. Tell me what all that covers, John.
It covers acute care and outpatient. In other words, patients who are inpatients, whether they're having pneumonia, surgery, just general weakness. We have physical therapists that will go up and do evaluations on them, get them up, get them walking. A lot of times get them sitting in a chair where they may not have been out of bed in a while. Do exercises with them to get their legs and arms stronger, and then get them to where they can progress on to somewhere else, whether it be home for home health, or whether it be a nursing facility or a rehabilitation facility, inpatient rehabilitation facility, or to us an outpatient. And we see, when I say outpatient, I'm describing people that live and can come to our facility from their home. A lot of times that may be a total joint replacement, ACL repair, an athlete having a shoulder issue, an industrial athlete is what I like to call people who work in a factory or industrial place.
That's right.
They tend to have to take care of themselves just like an athlete does, because they use their body so much that they have to keep it in good shape as well. We work with low back pain patients, neck pain patients, just a whole gamut of things as far as getting people back to where and what our motto is, getting people back in the game of life, getting them back to where they can do what they want to do. And that's pretty much what we do from the rehab side. Of course, I have a lot of paperwork that I have to do. And, with our government,
Yeah,
with
oh, yeah.
Medicare and everything else, the paperwork just continues.
Well, it's
But,
pretty soon it'll just be paperwork the way they keep cutting back on what they
That's right.
pay.
But it's great to be able to have a job where a lot of times you can see patients come in and they may come in a wheelchair, or they may come in on a walker, and when they discharge, they're no longer on that walker or they're no longer in that wheelchair.
Right.
And that's just, I know everybody that works with me, we all feel the same way. We're clinicians, and
Yeah.
we enjoy what we do.
Well, I don't think people understand. A lot of them do. I don't have the greatest understanding of it either. But you've got people that work for you and probably yourself. You put up as much time in school as a doctor does.
Some do. We
Yeah.
actually have 2 physical therapists who have their doctorate degrees in physical therapy.
Right.
So it does take a lot of time. Takes a really great grade point average.
Yeah.
You have to have a great one to get in to start with. And so
Right.
it really well knowledgeable people know their craft, and again, the compassion and the heart for what we do. Again, I'm blessed to have people to work with me that are easy to manage because they care about what they do.
Well,
They
now
care
this-
about their patients.
This is not related, Doc, but maybe it is. I know that Andalusia's got some pretty good orthopedics now.
They do.
And my son's been is in a surgical technical program at he'll graduate in August, and when they have an opening, he's going to apply out to Andalusia Health. Hope he can get a job while he's continuing to go to Lurleen. He's taking medical technology and that kind of stuff.
Right.
The Army's promised him that he gets all this stuff squared away, they'll put him in his physician's assistant program.
Oh, that's
pay
good.
for it. And I've got my fingers crossed because I'm tired of paying. And but he's a good boy. Anyway, he has been on some surgeries there, and I'm not even telling me your names or anything, but he tells me what kind of surgeries there were. He's been, I think, for a total knee replacement and a couple of shoulder replacements, that kind
Right.
of just marvelous.
Hip replacements. A
Yeah,
lot of
hip
different
replace- I
things
mean,
have been done.
10 years ago, y'all would not have dared
Right.
do that.
Conformist knees, where it's computer
Right.
generated and custom made for your knee. A lot of different things going on right
I mean,
now.
it's just, when he told me about that, I mean, I was very, very impressed.
A lot of changes, a lot of new technologies. As technology improves, even with our phones, technology improves everywhere. So it's great to see a lot of new things coming out.
Well,
To-
I
for the
would
betterment
think
of
that
people.
the new MRI equipment that they've got would be, I mean, that's on par
It
with
is.
Dothan or Birmingham or Pensacola. And I happen to know some of the people that do the work with MRI. And, they're just as qualified as anybody I've ever seen.
Right.
Y'all, it's a good thing. Tell me about, you've kind of given me the overview, but tell me about, well, there's some things I know you want to talk about.
Well, today what I was going to talk about was kind of where we're at now in this time of year. Really, we've been in it since about May, but it's hot.
Yeah, it is.
In the South, we're about to enter the dog days of summer, which is when it's really hot.
Yeah.
And
And
so
humid.
many people, want to go out and be outside, and some decide, well, I haven't been out in a while, and I'm going to go out and work in my garden, or I'm going to go out and cut the grass, or I'm going to do this or that, or whatever the case may be. And it's constant that these people want to do these things. And even with athletes, you've got the football teams that are going to start up at first week of August with practices. And again, it is very hot, and the dehydration itself
Right.
comes into play. So no matter whether you're a weekend warrior or an athlete, or you just like to get outside every once in a while, you have to be really careful with this heat. And
Well,
with-
when you're tired or really thirsty or something like that, you're more prone to injuries. You
You
cannot, I mean, your brain doesn't process.
you're sluggish. You're disoriented a lot of times.
Your
so
brain
you are
does
more,
not process nearly as well as it
You know,
does when you're hydrated.
And you look at a lot of athletes that play. Let's just use football as an example. A lot of injuries, unless it's an impact injury, can occur in the third and fourth quarter when you are more dehydrated, where you are more disoriented, and you're not at your full game. So that's why it's so important to stay hydrated.
I cannot tell you how many times I've seen an athlete injured when they're about to go and the coach says one more play, and it's the last play of the day, and maybe he's not watching out for himself as much as he ought to. Come here. Or whatever, but I just think it's because they're tired, dehydrated.
Right.
One of them things I have to watch. I had an episode several years ago when I went out like that, and I made the yard look great, and and found myself so low on potassium.
Yeah, and that's the thing. You can get outside. There's some little helpful hints, unless you're on a medication that can color your urine. Basically,
Right.
is a perfect example, because if you're well hydrated, your urine should almost be clear. A lot of people like to say anywhere from lemonade to clear, and I've got a chart I know that they're going to display
We'll
on.
try to put it on our Facebook
Put it on the page so you can see it, and it kind of gives you an idea. If you're down into the more yellow and bright yellow, you really need to start drinking more water,
Right.
drinking more Gatorade or Powerade or some type of sports drink to get those electrolytes back in you, to get your hydration levels back up to where you're healthier. I mean, it even in fact, I feel can keep you from having so many sinus issues with just being more hydrated.
Yeah.
So those people, you have to be careful this time of year. You want to make sure if you are outside that you're wearing light colored clothing,
Right.
loose fitting clothing. These shirts that are more of that moisture wicking or polyester blend are really better.
Yeah.
Because there are a lot of the t-shirts that are a heavier made t-shirt that are cotton that can really weigh you down, and at the same time, once you fill it with sweat and it's wet, now you're trapping that heat into a degree, and it can cause you a lot of problems. So it's very
If you
important
don't
to
have
wear good
airflow
clothes.
with a wet T-shirt, it's one of the most melting.
It is.
I guess unless you're in a bar, wet T-shirt means something else. That's not what I'm
There
talking
you
about,
go.
folks. But if you I've done a lot of work outside, and I remember one day coming in from a job in late July. I was rebranding a station to Chevron down in Florida Panhandle, and we were had a new canopy to put up, and then we had to dress it up with 14 pounds of water weight that day.
And that's another thing I was going to address.
And I took my T-shirt off when I got home to take a shower, because I want to shower right then.
Right.
And I just happened to accidentally throw it onto the scale.
Uh-huh.
Weighed 8 pounds.
I've had people they will get. And one thing I like to encourage parents to do, especially with kids, is to take and hydrate, or to take their kids in the morning and make them weigh themselves nude. And then when they've gone through practice, they've gone through their day's events, and it can be even for adults when they go outside to work
Right.
all day. Come back in and weigh yourself. Whatever you've lost in water.
Yeah, it's fluid.
And so it's important that for every pound of body weight you lose in a day, to drink 16 to 20 ounces of water per pound of body weight
Right.
that you lose. So that's why it's so important to hydrate. I know guys that have played football for me, or around me, and then when I see them on Friday night, they're dehydrated before they ever go out on the field.
Yeah.
And it's because they have not hydrated daily when they got in from practice. So it's very important they realize that the energy drinks are terrible because they increase your heart rate, which increases your urine output, which
Right.
puts you right back into dehydration. So, sports drinks, water, milk,
Right.
orange juice are the best things for you.
Right.
I try to encourage all kids to stay away from any of your high caffeinated drinks, especially your Monster and
Yeah,
your
I was
energy
going to
drinks.
say I hate to admit it. I like those drinks. I don't drink them anymore, but I sure love them.
But when you're
We're
going to
going-
be outside in a performance issue, you just
Yeah.
really want to avoid them as much
Right.
as possible.
We're going to stop and take a break. We'll be back shortly. Welcome back to Good News Covington County. Today it's Uncle Bob's day off. Well, at least for the interview. So it's poor old brother John here and my good friend cousin John Thomas from Andalusia Health, who works with the rehab and all that kind of stuff. Now he's got a shirt that says 50 years on it, but he's not 50 years old. They're just talking about this year's the 50th anniversary of Andalusia
That's right.
Health. And we're so happy for that. And John, we were talking about how a lot of preventative strategies for this time of year because of the heat and the humidity. People get out and You know, they think they're 19 years old again, and go out there and get overheated and dehydrated. We were talking about the strategies for that. Can you
Right.
please pick up kind of where we left off?
Sure. There are other things you want to do. Discussed lighter clothing. You
Right.
know, white clothing especially. A cap. You know, typically a lighter colored cap,
Right.
especially made of the same moisture wicking material helps as well. Also, you want to make sure that you try and, you know, we're in South Alabama, so saying let's go outside when it's cooler can
Mean
just-
that it's 85 degrees
Exactly.
instead of 100.
so you want to try your best to go out earlier in the day or late in the day,
Right.
but not middle of the day. So that's important as well, to try to just schedule your priorities, whatever it is you think you need to do, around, you know, what time you're going out, and just
Right.
making sure that you're in a time where it's safe or safer, where it's not so hot.
Correct.
As far as one thing I wanted to press on too is the difference between heat exhaustion and heat stroke. A lot of times heat exhaustion can come on, you become disoriented.
Right.
You've been out in the heat too long, you sweated a lot, you can become disoriented, you'll tend to have a weak pulse, very heavy sweating, nausea, possibly even vomiting. But then as time goes on, you can also even be agitated and sometimes very irritable.
Well, if
And
I'd been out working that hard, I'd be agitated.
I'm irritable when I'm in the heat anyway and sweating that much. But anyway,
I actually like it.
and heat stroke, and the difference, the one big difference between heat stroke and heat exhaustion, of course, heat stroke is much more severe. They're both severe, but you're looking at 104-degree temperature, inner core temperature. You're looking at you've stopped sweating, so a lot of times your skin is more clammy. It's not heavy sweating. Your pulse is now very strong, and again,
That's because you're trying to live.
right, and you have a lot of the same symptoms. You still have the nausea, the vomiting. You still can be at the point of disorientation, and you can also at the point be passed out. And then we're looking at, you know, a very dangerous situation.
Now, John, when somebody gets into that situation, you know, what do y'all do to somebody that's in a heat stroke situation?
In the athletic field, now, if it's someone, let's just say you're out in your yard, you know, of course, get them in a cool area,
Yeah.
a shady area. So you want to try to find a shady area where there's good airflow. You want to take off as much clothing as you can, especially any heavy clothing, you know, like we talked about, the heavy cotton shirts that just hold moisture to you.
So next time, if I'm out naked in the yard and police
That's
come
right.
up, I just act
You just
like
tell
I'm
me
passed out
you
and
just
tell them I
tell
had a
me
heat stroke.
That's right. You just tell them you were really hot.
Probably not going to work this December.
Yeah, well, it depends on how close to the road you are.
Yeah.
But the key is you know, making sure you take ice or bags of ice or anything cold and put it in the armpit area, in the groin area, at the neck, on top of the head. Ice towels are great. I love ice towels
Yeah.
at the beginning of football season, because when you can control the temperature of a young girl or young guy to the point of that it decreases their temp somewhat with that ice towel, and they feel better, and they immediately start to feel better.
Yeah.
You know, that's a big thing, and getting that temperature down. You want to get that body temperature down. So that's what you're doing with heat exhaustion. You want to get them in a cool place, good airflow. You know, restrict or decrease the amount of clothing that you can to where they're cooled off. Now, when we get into heat stroke, we're looking at a situation where you're doing basically the same thing. You're getting them in a cool area, shaded area, hopefully air conditioned. Of course, if they passed out, you can't give them water, but you want to, the heat exhaustion phase, start giving them some water, some electrolytes, you know, not just water, but also a sports drink with some sodium, potassium, the things that you need to replenish. But as well, you need to make sure that they are in that shaded area, and with a heat stroke, that some doctors don't agree with this, but it's still what the National Athletic Trainer Association feels is the best thing, because the pluses outweigh the minuses as far as putting someone in an ice bath. I mean, if you are at the point of,
if you're core,
if you're at the point of heat stroke and you're 104 degrees and you're waiting on the ambulance, it's that important to immerse them in an ice bath and to get their body to cool down as much as you can, and then go from there. Now, in those cases, sometimes you may not have an ice bath. You know, if there goes the
run a hose on them, whatever you
run
can
a
do.
hose, ice bags of ice, cubes of ice in the armpits, the groin, the neck, the head. Again, as I said, a lot of times, even I've been to a school that didn't want you to immerse them in a big, huge tub, because you look at the collegiate level, but usually you have plenty of help. But at the collegiate level, let's say, or even at the high school level, if you've got one of these really big boys, and you immerse him in this ice water, and then he has an issue, you getting
Got a
him
lot of
out
liability.
and you getting him out is difficult. So a lot of people will tell you to get a kiddie pool and fill it full of ice water, to where at least you can get them in it, you can submerge them, you can get them,
Worst
cooled
comes to
off,
worst, they can roll
and
out
you
of
can
it.
roll them out of it
Yeah.
if you need to. So that's kind of, but the key is again getting that temperature down, getting them in that safe zone to where they can recover, and then where they will be back to themselves.
Yeah, well, that's
And again, getting rehydrated and getting IVs started where you can get that fluid back.
and in that particular, in both those particular cases, but particularly in the case of the heat stroke, I think time is of the essence.
It is. It's very much so.
It's
Because
not
you're talking
something that you
organ
fool
failure.
around.
Organ failure.
Yeah.
And there's also something else to talk about that's kind of new, and it's called rhabdomyolysis. A lot of people are just calling it rhabdo, of course, but along the name you can
Is
see
that like
why.
rabies?
You can see why, but no, this is more. It's a issue where it comes more with repetitive exercise, and then the heat can even make and it can exacerbate it. But you're doing a repetitive exercise of some form, and then the muscle actually breaks down and starts to break itself down to the point it can actually cause organ failure. So that's another area
Really?
that is just really started to be out. You seeing more of.
Do you see that tied to any particular exercise?
It
regimen?
can be. It's more any exercise that is very repetitious. In other words, you're doing something over and over and over again to high repetition, high volume, to where you're just.
If you got a guy that just thinks he ought to bust out 500 push-ups every day and do it in
Those are the
8
kind of
minutes,
things.
that's kind of,
Those are the kind of things, or any, like I said, anything that's very high repetitious weightlifting, but it's more based on an aerobic style. You just have to be careful. It's not that you can't do it. You just need to be careful and know what the
yeah,
signs
so
are.
it really, I mean, this is how involved it gets. It's not trying to make it complicated. When he said an aerobic style, he's talking about the way that your body intakes oxygen and fuels and all these other things that he's been talking about. That's kind of the way you fuel your body, and you get a lot of weight. I can't tell it now because my chest fell in my drawers, but furniture problem. But I used to lift in college, just around the fraternity house, and the oxygenating and breathing right as you do that lifting is very important for a number of reasons. But if you don't, you have problems even then.
You can seen young men, and this is off the subject of dehydration, but have actually had what's called a syncope from having the bar sitting on their chest because they couldn't get it off.
Get it off.
And it causes a vagal response, and they pass out. And it not always pass out to the point they close their eyes and are totally lifeless. They zone out because of
Yeah.
that it shuts off.
It's kind of like you're stunned.
Yeah, it's a vagal response, but it can hits that vagal nerve, and then you have an issue there as well.
Well, this is something people don't think about that can happen. You get dehydrated in a swimming pool.
This is true. It's crazy,
It is, but
but you got to drink water, and
gotta
not,
drink
not
water.
swimming pool water,
and that was what I was going to say next. Don't drink the swimming
especially
pool
the
water.
public pool.
Right.
But you want to make sure that you stay hydrated. That's the
Right.
key to this time of year, and it starts in Alabama in probably March sometimes, and runs on into September and sometimes early October.
Yeah.
So you got to be, you just got to be careful and make sure that you're doing things early in the morning, late in the afternoon. That you try to avoid being outside in the middle of the day. If you have to be, decrease your amount of activity where it's not so laborious in the middle of the day, and to make sure lighter clothing. Drink plenty of fluids. Get in the shade when you can. Take more rest breaks. The Alabama High School Athletic Association requires, when football starts, that you can only go so long before you take a break, and then you have to have a break and allow the boys to get in the shaded area, drink plenty of fluids, have time to recover before you go back to another activity.
Well, that's a change from when I was in high
Oh, it
school.
sure is. It sure is.
Get a salt pill. Go get another salt tablet.
Oh, well, I remember when I
That
was.
part of it was probably good. The fact that you couldn't melt the salt tablet in your mouth because you didn't have enough saliva
When I
wasn't
played,
particularly helpful.
when I played, and that was later on, it was after you had 2 water breaks of practice, one in the middle and one at the end.
Yeah.
And if you weren't a starter, you might not get one till the end.
Right.
Because the starters went first, and it was a water hose. So
That's exactly right.
and that was it.
No cool water, no. Yeah,
So
no, that's
it's
exactly
changed a
right.
lot, but in a lot of cases, you know, it is important. You know, a lot of these kids, they during the summer, some of them get out and get out and get acclimated. Some do not. They stay inside all the time, or they may have a job that's inside, so they're not as acclimated. And it's important, you know, when they start going outside, that they get acclimated to it.
Sure.
So they start out slowly and progressively working up to where they can get used to that hot weather.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, there's just 1,001 things you can do, and people don't realize how dangerous dehydration is.
It is.
I have a friend that works in that works as a millwright and does that kind of stuff around oil refineries, and the company that he works with now, of course, they require them to wear these fireproof clothes, and that's heavy stuff. It's going to make you perspire anyway. But they have realized that it's so important to good performance that what they do is they now monitor the fluids. They have a person on the job that monitors their fluids 5 times, 6 times a day.
Wow.
To make sure that, well, they found out that, you know, it's better to monitor fluid and say, friends, slow down and get water. They get more efficient workers
Right,
and they have
you
a
do.
lot less accidents.
You do.
And I mean, you know, it just goes to show. I mean, if industry's figured that out, that's a great thing.
Yeah. That's like taking time when you're in a football game for the ice towels. You know, one coach may say, well, I don't want to waste time or money on getting ice towels and a cooler and everything else. But when you're considering that player's performance is about to increase because he feels better, you know, you're going to get more out of them. And so you want to make sure that they're performing to their best, and at the same time that they're safe by,
Yeah.
you know, keeping them temperature down, keeping them hydrated, and getting them to where they are a better athlete or they're able to perform better.
You know, if that kid that's a tackle can make one more pancake, or the kid that's a running back gets 5 more yards in a game because of that, it's worth it.
Or if he's disoriented and he doesn't remember a play, you know, you're in trouble. Whereas if he feels better, he's got his wits about him, and he knows what's going on, and he can read the play and know what's going on.
Well, John, they tell me that we have run out of time, which means I talk too much and you didn't talk
And I
enough.
probably did too.
But we want you to come back on here.
We
Let's
will.
talk about some more of this stuff.
We
Bring your
will.
people back.
I'm going to start bringing some people up here and let them do it as well.
Well, great. I mean, seriously,
Oh, yeah.
great. We enjoy having people like you up here. It's just fun anyway. But thanks for coming in,
Yes,
and
sir. Glad to be here.
we'll talk with you again. Thanks, folks. We'll see you later.